1.
Hugo Chavez carried worldwide thoughtfulness regarding the HAARP office in Alaska when he blamed the United States Air Force for utilizing this high-recurrence transmitter cluster to trigger the 2010 Haiti tremor. Until this point, projecting deformations on this United States Air Force research station was a tactless act submitted by just the looniest of tinfoil hatters. Theories about the more obscure side of HAARP were, as far as anyone knows, set out to settle when the Air Force reported that this ionospheric research complex would be shutting its entryways in 2014. Be that as it may, the hypothesis was fueled once more into fire when HAARP was returned in 2017 by the University of Alaska Fairbanks, UAF-10, admittedly. It presumably was definitely not a decent decision from a PR point of view with respect to UAF to pick the falsely incited appearance of a climate marvel as their first examination. At the point when HAARP's new caretakers reported their arrangements to make a variant of the aurora borealis that was imperceptible to the unaided eye in the skies over Alaska. Many accepting this as affirmation of this dubious exploration station's climate-controlling abilities, although the HAARP program has been consistently blamed for controlling the climate and broadcasting mind control signals. None of these cases have been unmistakably shown to be either evident or bogus up until now.
2.
Possibly dominating the Moab as the most deadly non-atomic weapon in the United States munitions stockpile. Project Thor is an innovation planned by Jerry Pournelle during the 1950s that would destroy adversaries with jolts from above, colloquially named poles from God. This sort of kinetic energy penetrator KEP would hypothetically comprise of a couple of satellites. One fills in as a focusing on center, and the other is outfitted with 6-meter-long, 20 feet, tungsten poles that would be dropped on an objective from circle, equipped for infiltrating many feet into the Earth's outside layer. These thunderclaps from Thor would create harm identical to an atomic impact without the fallout. 9. Though the expense of conveying such bars into space is viewed as restrictive, resuming the Project Thor activity was genuinely considered as of late as the George W. Shrubbery Organization, with $21 trillion apparently appropriated without approval by the Department of Defense and a couple of different officers. It's difficult to tell what possibly cost-restrictive hypothetical tasks the United States government may be quietly realizing without the information or assent of its kin.
3.
In the last part of the 1920s, the United States Navy started investigating the strategic capability of airborne plane-carrying warships. Two dirigible-style aircrafts were developed: the USS Akron and the USS Macon, the two of which conveyed a team of 60 men and were fit for sending and recuperating Sparrowhawk military aircraft in flight. Notwithstanding, both Navy flying plane-carrying warships met shocking closures and their remaining parts presently rest at the lower part of the ocean. Recently, in any case, bits of gossip have surfaced of DARPA's arrangements to resume this section of American history and start another endeavor to create airborne plane-carrying warships for military use. This time, these proposed sentinels of the skies would convey drones rather than monitored warplanes, called the Demons program. This venturesome DARPA activity would comprise of adjusted C-130 air transports stacked with covert robots fitted for infiltrating foe protections undetected. 8. Given DARPA's standing for abruptly declaring the arranging phases of effectively finished tasks when their cover may be blown, it's sensible to keep thinking about whether there may as of now be devils flying over our heads. In the event that the whimsical declaration of assumed mystery space program insiders like Corey Goode is to be accepted, there may even be Avengers-style Air Force helicarriers watching the skies currently, delivered imperceptible by cutting-edge shrouding innovation.
Jungle.
4,
Audio Jungle.
It's been grounded that subconscious informing is utilized broadly in promoting. This kind of promoting normally misuses the baser desires of the general population to impact them to purchase an item or administration. Yet, imagine a scenario where similar standards utilized in subconscious promoting are additionally being utilized by the United States Knowledge Local Area for the reasons for undercover work or even brain control. In the past mystery CIA report named The Operational Potential of Subliminal Perception, portrays in exact detail the endorsed philosophy for gaming the standards of subconscious insight to convince somebody to accomplish something that they as a rule wouldn't do. 7. While the creator of the archive eventually infers that the operational viability of subconscious discernment is incredibly restricted, the CIA is broadly known for its talent for working inside the injuries of outrageous cut-off points and as yet achieving its secret goals with no trouble at all.
5,
Audio Jungle.
Somewhere in the range of 1949 and 1969, the United States military tried natural weapons on its own kin without their insight or assent. One such trial happened in 1950 when a U.S. Navy transport showered billions of small microorganisms into the environment over San Francisco, causing an enormous upsurge in sickness and possibly slaughtering one resident. Another occurred in the metro framework under New York City in 1966 when specialists dropped lights loaded up with microbes onto the tracks to test how far the movement of a train would convey these conceivably lethal microbes. Then again, different examinations comprised of overwhelming whole urban communities in a haze of zinc-cadmium sulfide under the guise of giving a distraction to shroud the populace in case of their flare-up of atomic war. The military reveals to us that this was improved to shield us from unfamiliar enemies. However, many keep thinking about whether the advantages of such crazy experimentation really exceed the costs. However, hazardous microorganisms delivered into the air may be the least of the natural dangers to which the American public have been uncovered by their administration. In 2016, DNI Chief James Clapper communicated his interest that quality-altering innovation may turn into a weapon of mass annihilation on the off chance that it fell into some unacceptable hands. The study of quality altering has multiplied all through the advanced world, apparently with almost no idea given to the possibly tragic repercussions of fiddling around with the hereditary construction of the biosphere. While normally happening microorganisms are sufficiently terrible, hereditary designing has offered assent to the likely presence of furtively created organic weapons that could clear out whole public populaces essentially overnight. In any case, microorganisms given superpowers by insane lab rats may really present to a lesser extent a peril than different sorts of hereditarily altered organic entities, GMOs, that have been let free among an accidental populace. In 2013, a gathering of around 300 researchers officially dismissed the reason that there is a logical agreement on the well-being of GMOs for human utilization. This assertion drove various eatery and staple chains, for example, Chipotle and Trader Joe's, to out-and-out restriction GMOs from their kitchens and shelves. 6. Yet agribusiness companies keep on changing the hereditary code of fundamental harvests like corn and soybeans under the security of a multitude of logical distributions and media sources that over and again guarantee their crowds that GMOs represent no danger to the human body or to the biosphere. Agribusiness Goliaths like Monsanto are intensely financed by the United States government. On the off chance that GMOs genuinely are inconvenient to human well-being, the ceaseless spread of these unnatural organic entities could be filling in as a secretive continuation of the public authority's dangerous propensity for presenting its kin to natural weapons.
6.
In Arthur C. Clarke's book Earthlight, the unbelievable sci-fi writer of the 20th century considers an advanced weapon that utilizes electromagnetism to move a stream of liquid metal miles into space, skewering and annihilating an assaulting warship. This sort of protection-puncturing weapon isn't completely inconceivable. Since World War II, different arms makers have provided warriors with instruments of war called self-manufacturing penetrators, SFPs, making utilization of a compound blast and a metal liner. SFPs impel themselves at a heavily clad vehicle and afterward change their shape to enter the objective. Be that as it may, customary SFPs are wasteful and difficult to utilize, offering ascent to the interest for a more compelling protective layer infiltration weapon. DARPA has built up a particular shot to fit this specialty called the Magneto Hydrodynamic Explosive Munition, MAHEM, utilizing electromagnetism to frame and direct a supported fly of liquid metal at a defensively covered objective. MAHEM is substantially more versatile than a regular SFP and intently looks like the anecdotal weapon included in Earthlight. Beyond these fundamental subtleties, very little is thought about this mysterious military venture. Nonetheless, China's Nanjing University of Science and Technology has obviously figured out MAHEM for its own purposes. 5. As with numerous different parts of the shadowy battle for worldwide incomparability presently being pursued between the superpowers of the East and West, the full subtleties encompassing the turn of events and organization of this fearsome weapon may never completely channel their way into the public mindfulness.
7.
In Arthur C. Clarke's book Earthlight, the unbelievable sci-fi writer of the 20th century considers an advanced weapon that utilizes electromagnetism to move a stream of liquid metal miles into space, skewering and annihilating an assaulting warship. This sort of protection-puncturing weapon isn't completely inconceivable. Since World War II, different arms makers have provided warriors with instruments of war called self-manufacturing penetrators, SFPs, making utilization of a compound blast and a metal liner. SFPs impel themselves at a heavily clad vehicle and afterward change their shape to enter the objective. Be that as it may, customary SFPs are wasteful and difficult to utilize, offering ascent to the interest for a more compelling protective layer infiltration weapon. DARPA has built up a particular shot to fit this specialty called the Magneto Hydrodynamic Explosive Munition, MAHEM, utilizing electromagnetism to frame and direct a supported fly of liquid metal at a defensively covered objective. MAHEM is substantially more versatile than a regular SFP and intently looks like the anecdotal weapon included in Earthlight. Beyond these fundamental subtleties, very little is thought about this mysterious military venture. Nonetheless, China's Nanjing University of Science and Technology has obviously figured out MAHEM for its own purposes. 5. As with numerous different parts of the shadowy battle for worldwide incomparability presently being pursued between the superpowers of the East and West, the full subtleties encompassing the turn of events and organization of this fearsome weapon may never completely channel their way into the public mindfulness.
8.
The obvious sonic assaults on the U.S. consulate in Cuba revived many years-old feelings of dread about an alternate sort of unmistakable advantage. In 1965, at the stature of the Cold War, the Pentagon found that the Soviets were impacting the U.S. consulate in Moscow with very low recurrence (ELF) microwave radiation, while excessively powerless to cook anything. It was resolved that the supposed Soviet signal conveyed the chance of influencing the well-being or modifying the conduct of the government office staff, rather than effectively stop it. The Pentagon chose to contemplate the likely impacts of the sign and endeavor to mirror them back home. DARPA, at that point a newly printed part of the Department of Defense, therefore established an activity called Project Pandora and started investigating the impacts of ELF microwave radiation on primate subjects. Despite the fact that the outcomes were uncertain, Project pioneer Richard Cesaro stayed persuaded until Pandora's disbanding in 1969 that ELF radiation represented a genuine danger to the public security of the United States. The Pentagon never sorted out what the Soviets were up to at the American international safe haven and selected to settle the circumstance by enclosing the government office by a structure's likeness, a tin foil cap. An aluminum screen was raised to encompass the border of the complex, though DARPA may have shut the case on ELF radiation in 1969. Considers have since demonstrated that low recurrence microwave and radio waves may undoubtedly deleteriously affect the human body. It's even been shown that the signs produced and got from phones affect the working of the psyche that habitually shows itself in the disturbance of regular rest cycles. Today's reality is totally soaked by undetectable signs that keep us associated and educated. However, what amount do we really think about this all-inescapable radiation and what it very well may be meaning for our well-being and even our contemplations?
9.
Jungle.
Another kind of group control weapon went to the front during the Ferguson, Missouri, fights of 2014. As a functioning exhibition of the freshly discovered capacities of an inexorably mobilized American police state. Countermeasures utilized by the Ferguson Police Department to control common turmoil incorporated the utilization of LRAD sound cannons capable of extending voice orders over a distance of 5.5 miles, 9 kilometers. A long-range acoustic device, LRAD, delivers terrible substantial torment upon anybody inside 330 feet, 100 meters, of its sound way. LRAD makers are mindful so as to call their items gadgets, as opposed to weapons for advertising reasons. However, any individual who has persevered through the impacts of a LRAD is very much aware of the distinction between reality and the spin. Just ask the U.S. ambassadors positioned in Cuba who as of late began losing their hearing. Not long after the armistice between the United States and Cuba that happened in 2015. Ambassadors conveyed to the recently returned U.S. consulate on this Caribbean island country began revealing an abrupt and lasting deficiency of hearing. 2. U.S. examiners inferred that their representatives had been hit with a high-level and anonymous acoustic gadget that doesn't make any discernible sound yet purposes hopeless harm to the ears and cerebrum of anybody in its way. This occurrence was considered genuine to such an extent that the United States ousted 2 Cuban negotiators from their government office in Washington. However, the specific idea of this LRAD-like gadget and the character of the specialists answerable for its utilization on American authorities are as yet unclear. On the off chance that a sonic weapon was to be sure utilized on U.S. negotiators in Cuba, this would be an uncommon occurrence throughout the entire existence of worldwide relations.
10.
Audio Jungle.
directed energy weapons. The Greek mathematician Archimedes may have impacted the world forever more than 2,000 years prior as the primary individual to actually utilize a coordinated energy weapon, as indicated by a strange legend, during the Roman intrusion of Syracuse. Archimedes quickly built a hexagonal mirror when the Roman chief naval officer Marcellus moved his boats out of the scope of bowshot. Archimedes was obviously ready to catch the energy of the sun and reflect it onto the boats, setting them on fire and making them sink inside minutes. One MIT understudies had the option to reproduce this impact in 2005, however noticed that their mirror was just able to do adequately consuming a fixed target. Though logical information has progressed an extraordinary arrangement since the times of Archimedes, the fundamental hypothetical standards of coordinated energy weapon innovation continue as before. A Jew perpetrates harm from a distance by shooting a seriously focused light emission toward a target. Different kinds of Jews discharge various sorts of energy. However, the most advocated type of coordinated energy weapon being used today is the high-energy laser, HEL. These Jews are much the same as the lasers found in sci-fi motion pictures. They discharge a soundless light emission, undetectable at specific frequencies, that can burn an objective from many miles away. HELs have been created by workers for hire, like Lockheed Martin, for use in rocket safeguard and space war. However, some accept that these weapons may have been planned with substantially more vile purposes in mind. During the Thomas Fire that desolated California in December 2017, numerous observers and scientists noted property harm that apparently challenged each assumption of how an out-of-control fire ought to carry on. Despite the fact that out-of-control fires use foliage to spread, whole squares of houses caught fire while the encompassing trees remained untouched, though no authority clarification of this odd marvel is approaching. Various observers across California recorded video of light emissions descending from the sky as the burst spread across the state. Given the way that HELs are usually mounted on the button cones of planes, some have reasoned that the disorder unleashed by the Thomas Fire was supported with coordinated energy weaponry.